Nilqankom għal programm ieħor mis-sensiela Dinja Ewropa, propju l-aħħar programm minn din is-sensiela ilna niltaqgħu flimkien għal dawn l-aħħar 21 ġimgħa. Kien il-pjaċir tiegħi li nkun magħkom u llum se nkunu qegħdin nitkellmu dwar dak li qed jiġri madwarna fl-Ewropa u anke madwar id-dinja kif ukoll dwar ġurnata internazzjonali dedikata għan-nisa. Nibdew ftit b'dak li l-aħħar aħbarijiet sakemm qed niġu biex nirrekordjaw dan il-programm li seħħew fejn nafu li il-President Amerikan Donald Trump flimkien mal-President Ukren Volodymyr Zelensky waslu għal ftehim bejniethom biex ikun hemm waqfien mill-ġlied u anke xi għajnuna umanitarja u anke militari tasal anka fl-Ukrajna, issa kollox sta għal President Russu Vladimir Putin fejn naraw u se jaċċetta dan il-waqfien at least temporanju mill-ġlied jew inkella se jibqa' iwebbes rasu. Il-ġimgħa li għaddiet f'Malta saret konferenza interessanti ħafna, kienet organizzata mill-Uffiċċju tal-Parlament Ewropew f'Malta, għalkemm kienet il-qofol tagħha biex dak li jkun il-laqgħa n-nisa flimkien u anke iltqajna mal-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola. Tkellimna magħha anka dwar din is-sitwazzjoni. Dwar din is-sitwazzjoni tal-Ukrajna, is-sitwazzjoni li rajna il-ġimgħa l-oħra, dik il-famuża argument bejn Donald Trump u Volodymyr Zelensky li ikonna nammettu li ħafna minna anka min ma jagħtix każ l-aħbarijiet naħseb ixxukjatu xi ftit illa li aħna mdorrijin naraw id-diplomazija u nippretendu li il-mexxejja jiltaqa' madwar mejda u jippruvaw isibu is-soluzzjonijiet. Dakinhar ma seħħitx, però jidher li l-affarijiet xi żblokk żgħir. Madankollu in-nisa preżenti f'din il-konferenza li kienet organizzata mill-Uffiċċju tal-Parlament Ewropew f'Malta, dawk preżenti saqsew direttament lill-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola dwar is-sitwazzjoni fl-Ukrajna, il-paċi u xi tfisser meta trid iżżid is-sigurtà fl-Ewropa. Nisimgħu.
A just outcome is not one where 20% of a country's territory is occupied. We are in a situation where we talk a lot about peace, but we forget that peace in a vacuum is not peace. A frozen conflict is not peace, when your much stronger neighbor can decide to reignite it at any moment. When we talk about peace, I would talk about peace with liberty that allows you to move. Peace with justice, in other words, there's accountability for crimes being committed. A peace with dignity, that children that were taken are returned, that assimilation is reversed. It will take a long time, and we are at a particularly difficult moment now. But what we are hoping for is for a resolution to be found where peace can be restored, but not at the cost of a country either continuing to lose its territory or at the danger of losing more. Because it happened in 2008 and it happened in 2014, and we are back. There's also a more general point on this. We've had debates over the past years, I would say, that the further you are from that conflict, the less responsible you feel for it, right? Normal. You remember when we would have our challenges, if you were in Latvia, you'd say, this is far away from me. But today, the world is smaller. And what happens a few thousand kilometers away could happen anywhere. And when we talk about, and this is a discussion I want to really focus on, when we talk about security, we're not talking about boots on the ground or sending, as they ask me, your children to war. But what we're talking about is maybe paying our armed forces more, maybe helping our police force more, maybe making sure that our navy is well equipped. And even more importantly than all of this, that from a cyber perspective, because wars are also fought online, our infrastructure is strengthened. This is what we're discussing when we talk about security. Because if any of this had to be infringed, who's going to help us? Who? No, I speak a lot to countries that have gone through different phases. And this is the question they used to ask themselves before they were in alliances. Like, well, who would help us? And if we understand that we are here, how are we going to stand on our own 2 feet? And I think it's a question that we, as an adult country, could discuss without hysteria. But we're not there yet, but we will get there. We will get there. Time will tell.
Newsbook Malta ukoll kien preżenti għal din il-konferenza fejn għamel il-mistoqsijiet tiegħu u l-ewwel mistoqsija tiegħi lill-President Metsola kienet dwar kemm issa aħna ċittadini Maltin u Għawċin u ċittadini Ewropej jista' jkollna aktar fiduċja fil-mexxejja tagħna Ewropej meta ninsabu f'din is-sitwazzjoni.
Ngħidilhom li bħala leaders politiċi aħna għandna r-responsabilità biex nispjegaw x'inhu għaddej u biex naraw x'ser nagħmlu biex l-Unjoni Ewropea tkun tista' tieqa' fuq saqajja. Għal ħafna snin l-Unjoni Ewropea ma setax, imma llum qed naraw laqda bejn il-pajjiżi kollha ngħidlek bejn il-leaders ta' dawk il-pajjiżi li qed jgħidu ara. Aħna pajjiż u kontinent b'saħħtu, l-ikbar riżorsa tagħna huma ċ-ċittadini tagħna, irridu nkabru l-businesses tagħna u rridu nassiguraw lill-familji l-żgħażagħ tagħna il-politiċi qegħdin hemmhekk biex jipproteġuhom. ċittadini qed jistaqsuna għas-sigurtà u qed jistaqsuna biex ikunu komdi, biex ikollhom ħajja iżjed ġusta, ħajja iżjed sikura, ħajja iżjed li tgħinhom fejn ikunu iżjed tista' tgħid komdi fiha. Dak huwa d-dmir tiegħi, ir-responsabilità tiegħi u dak li ħankunu qed nagħmlu. Against the backdrop ta' dak kollu li qed isir, imma irrispettivament ukoll minn dak kollu li qed isir għax aħna għandna responsabilità lejn iċ-ċittadini tagħna.
Li Roberta Metsola staqsejta wkoll dwar issa relazzjonijiet transatlantiċi, ġifieri relazzjonijiet bejn l-Unjoni Ewropea u l-Istati Uniti. Dawn se jsir minnhom.
Naħseb li għandna nitkellmu mal-partners tagħna, dawn huma alleati tagħna, huma alleati ilhom alleati tagħna minn dejjem, irridu nitkellmu magħhom b'konfidenza, b'argumentazzjoni u b'responsabilità fejn ngħidu fuq dawn l-affarijiet aħna naqblu, fuq dawn l-affarijiet nistgħu niddiskutu, fuq dawn l-affarijiet forsi ma naqblux imma sa naħdmu biex naraw li we also can stand on our own 2 feet.
Apparti il-gwerra li nafu xi tfisser gwerra, però għaddejja gwerra oħra f'pajjiżi madwar id-dinja. Din il-gwerra maħluqa wkoll mill-Istati Uniti hija l-gwerra tat-tariffi, it-tariffi fuq materjali, fuq prezzijiet minn pajjiżi partikolari. Smajna ħafna fuq it-tariffi li ġew imposti fuq il-materji Kanadiżi, fuq il-materji Messikani u jidher ukoll li din il-biċċa xogħol tat-tariffi, il-gwerra tat-tariffi kif hija imsejħa se tkun qed tinferex ukoll amma pajjiżi oħrajn. Aħna l-Unjoni Ewropea maħniex esklużi. Ejna rawx qaltilna dwar dan Roberta Metsola.
Dawn il-gwerer ma jgħinu lil ħadd. Jiġifieri meta nitkellmu dwar it-tariffi li ħajjiġri huwa li l-prezzijiet ser jolew. U aħna rridu ngħinu u nipproteġu lill-konsumaturi tagħna. U l-konsumaturi tagħna għandhom bżonn li aħna nispjegawlhom. U allura qed naħdmu, qed nagħmlu l-almu tagħna, imma rridu nkunu lesti li ser ikun hemm tariffi li forsi jiġu imposti u jekk jiġu imposti rridu nirrispondu għalihom.
Fost dawk preżenti għal konferenza dwar il-Ġurnata Dinjija Internazzjonali li tfakkar in-nisa u dak li għatfadal isir biex in-nisa jilħqu ukoll l-ugwaljanza tagħhom f'ċerti joqsma, kien hemm min saqsa fejn sejrin u eżattament x'iridu iċ-ċittadini Ewropej.
We have been looking a lot at how people vote and the new trends. In other words, what people ask for when they go to vote. And over the past, let's say the last few years, that has changed drastically. It has changed not only because of that increasing frustration that political parties are too far away from them or they speak a language that is old or that is far away, that is not realistic or achievable. So they've been, if you let's say, boil down what people want from today's world in its most simple form is that they want a roof over their heads, they want a job, and they want the children to walk safely in the street. Basic. Everywhere we went, one country to another, but mostly here, people want us to guarantee those three things. If one of them is not guaranteed, you can spend 10 years talking about all sorts of other issues. Not going to work. So what I hope is that election after election we are waking up to a realization that if we don't guarantee those three basic things, then there's no future. I would not have expected this to be my answer 5 years ago, because we were living in decades of relative peace. Calm. Here, calm. Our generation does not know war. Our generation does not know conflict. Our generation, we are not from countries that grew up behind the Iron Curtain. So when in the latest debates on freedom of speech, for example, I mean, it would be good to remind that for a huge part of this continent, there were zero freedoms until 1989. Zero. So it's when we talk about the future, we need to make sure that we lose none of that.
Dwar id-drittijiet tan-nisa, x'qed jagħmel il-Parlament Ewropew?
Parliament has really been a champion of women's rights, and we are incredibly proud of what we've done. We've always kept within the limits of our competence, but I can tell you, and I will tell you, next week I have 2 women from Belarus and 2 women from Ukraine who are coming to the European Parliament to explain what they've done in their particular fields on civil liberties, on the front, on medical assistance, and on one is a former political prisoner who was arrested because she was a woman. It's a great thing for me to be doing next week, that I'm standing next to these 4 women. I will do it on Wednesday morning, or Wednesday. When what we see is happening in Iran, we speak up, and what we see is happening in Afghanistan, it's a terrible situation. When we look to our south, we have a lot to do, but also when we look to our countries, we have a lot to do. So I think we also need, going back to our women politicians in Parliament, to get together and say, where are we lacking? Where can we go further? We adopt a law and then forget it. Don't implement it, or implement it badly. When we pride ourselves on decisions we've taken, but then they're not enforced. So for me, protection and equality also means being honest as to where we still have to go, but having a good discussion as to where we should go. So let's see. I hope for the best.
Ovvjament meta jkollok konferenza bħal din qiegħda ssir f'Malta ma jistax jonqos li l-kummenti tal-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola wkoll jitolbuha biex tikkummenta u tagħti parir lil oqsma jew inkella lil partiti politiċi f'Malta. U hekk sar fil-fatt persuna mill-udjenza saqsieta għal parir u x'parir tagħti lil partiti politiċi tagħna.
I think there has to be a radical shift in the way we do politics in Malta and the way political parties are structured. I have long worked within one at all levels, and I am extremely proud to be in politics. But not enough has been done. And I think, and not only here, but everywhere I go, I would say this, is that political parties have become comfortable in thinking that their voter base will always turn out to vote for them. And if there's something we learned over the past 15, 20 years, but more acutely in the past 10, is that that's not the case. And that staying home has become a very common option. And our biggest disservice to our country is if we do not give our people the purpose and the reason to go vote. And my appeal to all political parties would be to look to their right, to look to their left, to look right in front, and see where they have been disappointing whoever is looking at them. whether it is the young people, the new voters, former voters, people who have never voted, people who feel that we are far away, people who feel that the language we talk is too complicated, people who say that this is not for me, that it's aggressive, it's hysterical, it's useless. I do not want to discuss policy only when there's a general election. I do not want politics to be sound bites because it goes viral, going back. I do not want politics to be only seen as either red or blue. Can't do that. The voters don't see that anymore, you know. Young people say, what on earth is this? And also people who have been voting for a long time are saying, you know what, maybe now I won't. That worries me. So I would like to be in a situation where we can be engaged enough for there to be a real political debate. Where are we going? Where is our country going? Visions that we used to call, not beyond just billboards. Okay? And that the level, and I will say this again, and I've been repeating this over and over, but I cannot repeat it often enough, that we owe each other, all political representatives, the decency to be respectful to each other. Because how can we then expect whoever reads what we say or watches how we act to not descend into a massive brawl, mostly online, sometimes offline?
Xi tgħidilhom Roberta Metsola lil dawk it-tfajliet u n-nisa li għadhom interessati u jixtiequ jidħlu fid-dinja tal-politika?
U nixtieq li llum dawk it-tfajliet ma jaħsbux li l-politika hija mezz biex inti tisserva. Jiġri hemm min iħares lejn il-politika u dawn it-tfajliet isaqsu ili malfejn għandi nagħmilha. Wan tagħmilha għalik, l-onet din mhix xi ħaġa li tagħmilha għalik li kieku kellek tażel biex tagħmel politika ma kontx tasilha. Wan. Ikun ħafna iżjed faċli tagħmel xi ħaġa oħra. It-tieni li ma tistax meta tieħu deċiżjoni taqta' qalbek jekk ma jirnexxilekx. It-tielet li in a way jekk inti temmen f'xi ħaġa ibqa' minha. L-ar ħaġa fil-politika nemmen hija u għandna ħafna politiċi u dawn il-pajjiżi kollha ġifieri naħseb jiena l-iktar ħaġa faċli li jagħmlu li jagħmel jista' jagħmel politiku li qatt ma jgħid xejn fuq xejn. Right? Li inti timxi minn elezzjoni għal oħra u tajtara jiena x'inhu lan tiegħi li nżomm is-siġġu tiegħi u li allura nista' nibqa' għaddejja mingħajr ma ngħid xejn fuq xejn. Jien dik qatt memminta għaliex jiena dejjem emmint u d-dinja dan huwa l-messaġġ li kieku nagħti lil tfajla ta' 14 illum jew ġuvni ta' 14 illum. Li jekk inti tispjega d-deċiżjoni tiegħek għalfejn ħadd dik id-deċiżjoni, ir-rispett inti ħadd għax tkun spjegajtu anke jekk xi ħadd ma jaqbilx miegħek. Jekk inti ma tieħux pożizzjoni u xi ħadd jistaqsik imma dik jew dak, għal xiex, ma x'jaħseb, jew what does he believe in or what are his ideals u r-risposta ma tiġix, ara dik ma tistax tkun il-politika. U speċjalment f'sitwazzjoni bħallum fejn kollox tista' tajtu ta' taħt fuq li inti trid taraf li tieħu pożizzjoni u li trid tkun fuq ta' quddiem biex tesprimi l-opinjoni. Dik toħloq ġifieri nurikom xi telefon tiegħi bit-tip ta' diskussjoni li ssir min jgħidlek jien qbilt miegħek jew jien ma qbiltx jew dak x'ġara jew spjegali jew x'qed tagħmel jew x'fettillek all sorts of things. Ma tispjega isma' hekk u hekk jew iż-żmien irid itina parir jew stennew ftit jew billi xi ħadd joħroġ jitgħajjar ma jfissirx li għandu raġun. That's my most common answer to anything. But on everything and anything. Imma hija f'soċjetà bħal tagħna żgħira, intensa, kulħadd, għandu vuċi li u jużah dak kulħadd juża dik il-vuċi. Għalina naħseb huwa importanti li min qed iħares lejna kemm il-viċin kemm fil-bot ma jarax isterizmu, ajjat, tajjir, attakki anke personali, etc. Mhux qed ngħidlek li ħajr nexxita.
Matul il-laqgħa ġiet mistoqsija wkoll x'kienu laqgħat importanti li sissa tista' tqishom highlights tal-karriera tagħha bħala President tal-Parlament Ewropew. Interessanti ferm it-tweġiba tagħha meta tenniet li l-aħjar żewġ laqgħat u li ħatibqa' tiftakar kienu mal-Papa Franġisku li tajjeb ngħidu li din il-ġimgħa qiegħed ifakkar it-12 l-anniversarju mill-ħatra tiegħu bħala Papa u anke mal-eks Kanċillier Ġermaniż Angela Merkel.
Jiena is-sena l-oħra kelli l-opportunità, kelli żewġ laqgħat li vera niftakarhom u nibqa' nożhom. L-ewwel waħda kienet mal-Papa. Ġifieri jiena qatt ma kont qattajt ħin miegħu u kelli l-opportunità li għal kważi 3 kwarti nitkellem miegħu bit-Taljan dwar x'inhuma l-isfidi globali, sfidi ta' mara, ta' etc. Vera kienet xi ħaġa sabiħa u hekk illum kien hemm tifel li saqsini, who was the most famous person you've ever met? And I told them, what do you mean? Like, who are you expecting me to answer? They told me, Trump? Messi? And I told them, no, I've met the most famous person. Objectively is the Pope. And I met him. And it was an amazing meeting. I also had an amazing meeting with Angela Merkel. So Angela Merkel kienet Kanċillier tal-Ġermanja 16 sena, challenges enormi, diskussjonijiet dwar id-deċiżjonijiet li ħadet, jekk kienux ta' impatt pożittiv, differenti, negattiv, riperkussjonijiet kbar. U kienet u jistaqsiet biex tiltaqa' miegħi. I was like, okay, of course. There we go. Mort Berlin u tqajt magħha u għamlet li serje ta' mistoqsijiet vera taf. U f'kull risposta li tajt, isa żiedet magħhom ir-riflessjonijiet tagħha meta mqabbel mal-fatt li kienet l-ewwel kanċillier mara fil-Ġermanja, ħafna koalizzjonijiet, l-iktar waħda li damet, l-iktar waħda li qalat, imma l-iktar waħda li ġabet stabilità. U dak li tallimt ġifri f'dik kważi sija li tkellimna kien imprezzabbli. Ġifri l-mod kif għalmitni, kif kienet xina sbat staqsejta li kienu li żjed challenges u qalet pereżempju li kienet kellha tiddeċidi jekk titkellimx bil-Ġermaniż jew bl-Ingliż fil-pubbliku għaliex l-irġiel ta' madwarek kienu jgħidula isma' inti aħjar titkellem bil-Ġermaniż mhux bl-Ingliż, pereżempju dak iż-żmien. It-tieni net li kienet tajt li pereżempju kif tidħol f'laqa, meta hi kienet l-unika mara dak iż-żmien li kienet tkun f'dawk il-laqat u li spiċċat li kienet l-iktar waħda b'saħħitha u li she outlasted everyone. Tkellimna ħafna dwar id-diskussjoni li kien ikollha hi fir-rigward taċ-Ċina, tar-Russja, tal-Amerika, ġbida sena ilu qed ngħidu 7 May. It was really ġifieri waħda li kieku kelli ċans li kolli sija oħra magħha.
Ma setax jonqos li f'sitwazzjonijiet diffiċli kif għaddejjin bħalissa u f'taħdidiet diffiċli ħafna bejn il-pajjiżi, ma setax tonqos il-mistoqsija ta' dawk preżenti lill President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola dwar x'mekkaniżmi tuża biex jirnexxilha tkampa f'dawn id-diskussjonijiet, tkampa kemm fil-ħajja personali u kemm fil-ħajja ta' politiku. U barra minn hekk minn fejn iġġib din ir-reżiljenza kollha. Nisimgħu x'qaltilna.
Coping mechanisms. So it's the world right now is on fire. And I was just at a school. I went to 2 schools today. I went to one school, I went to San Anton in the morning, so boys and girls all the way from 3 to 16 years of age, with different interests, different questions, depending. And now I just went to St. Augustine, St. Augustine's, only boys. And one of the boys in the second school asked me, but how do you spend your week? Or what does a typical week for you look like? I think it was prepared, Imam Somma. And then I told him, look, under normal circumstances, I know where I'm going to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm very well organized. I have a very good schedule. I have a very tight schedule. I know if I'm going to be in Brussels or in Strasbourg or Malta generally or somewhere else. But if you ask me today, 7th of March, where I'm going to be next Friday, I tell you, I don't know. Because the world today is such that first of all, you'll have to travel quickly somewhere. 2, that there are situations where I can do something and I have sort of earned this reputation of solving problems. So being thrown at the problems, trying to solve them, I don't always manage. And that comes on hours' notice. Usually last week I went to the US on hours' notice. And the week before I went to Gaza just 1 day notice because I was told to go there and I had to go. And next week after Strasbourg, I don't know. So my method of coping is actually, you know what, even though I plan a lot, don't worry when plans don't work. Because it's a situation where you are living day by day, you just have to manage day by day. But the resilience that I had to keep, the calmness, and the pushback on people who told me, listen, withdraw. Because, you know, the country did not match or did not fit. And me having to tell them calmly, sorry, I have withdrawn from elections before, I will not withdraw from this one. And if you're asking me to withdraw, it means I'm going to win. Amen. And in fact, that's what happened. Wow. They didn't ask me again. In June last year, after the elections here, and I ran again for president, no one told me to withdraw. So don't worry, that means I have at least made it a little bit easier. But what I tell mostly girls when I go and see them in school, so because we're one of the countries that votes at 16, so I would like our young kids essentially to know about politics, to look beyond politics as being just screaming hysteria, aggression, aggressive on women, nasty on women, particularly harsher on women. Let's say it very openly. I don't like to say that women have it harder in certain areas, but in politics they certainly do. And if I try to take away or get the girls to take away from meetings like I have, is for them really not to give up when faced with pushback, when faced with doubt that will transform into self-doubt. And that self-doubt can eat you from inside out and you never recover from it. And that takes a lot. And it also, perhaps one last thing, I listen a lot to my team. You know, I have a lot of people who work in my team. It's a big one. I've built it over decades now. I've had a team that has run every single election with me since 2004. A couple of them are here already. Some of them started as interns, tfal mi'aj, and they're still with me, misiken. But I listen to them. If they tell me this is a bad idea, I don't always not do it. I listen to them and I say, Ole, I think it's a good idea. So, for example, give you just one example. Yesterday, we had a European Council. And, you know, you have the traditional walk down the red carpet and you have to say something. And I was realizing, Marelli, how often are we going to talk about, you know, values, European strength and whatever. I said, you know, actually, finally we have this meeting. And I'm going to just be blunt, and I'm going to say and I said, it's about damn time that we're here. Obviously, it was cut. I said much more than just that. And on my way in, I told one of my guys, Matthew Tabone, who's been with me since 2004. And I thought, Misma, I'm going to say this. But before you tell me no, I'm going to say it anyway. And he's like, no. I was like, I'm just going to go. But we consult a lot as to what works, what doesn't, and after years of experience, you know, you start to say, ara, dik ħadmet, dik ma ħadmitx, dik nistgħu nirranġawha u dik ma nerġgħux nagħmluha. U dik tajjeb li tammetti li xi ħaġa ma tkunx ħadmet.
Sa dan it-tant il-Ġurnata Internazzjonali tan-Nisa ma kienx iċċelebrata biss hawn Malta permezz ta' din il-konferenza, però fil-Parlament Ewropew din il-ġimgħa stess tlaqat il-plenarja fejn dawk kollha preżenti setgħu jiltaqgħu u jisimgħu lil 4 nisa li għaddew u soffrew ħafna minħabba l-ġlieda għal-libertà u l-paċi fil-pajjiż tagħhom. Fil-fatt kien hemm persuna mill-Belarus, mill-Ukrajna, oħra li kienet arrestata fil-Krimea u anka volontir Ukrena. Ejja nisimgħu ftit l-esperjenzi tagħhom fil-qosor u napprezzaw ħafna x'qegħdin jagħmlu nisa bħal dawn biex jiġġieldu għall-valur tal-paċi, il-libertà u d-demokrazija.
Dear Svetlana, Palina, Leni, and Tata, your brave actions are an inspiration to this House and to all who cherish liberty everywhere. Thank you for being an example for girls and boys across Europe and the world. Thank you.
International Women's Day is not about celebration, it's about struggle. And today, many Belarusian women don't receive flowers. They receive prison sentences. They don't march in parades. They march into courtrooms. They don't enjoy the luxury of peace and democracy. They have to fight for it. And we fight. We fight not to be in the shadow of the revanchist Russian Empire, seeking to subjugate our nations and to erase everything that connects us to Europe, our language, our culture, our identity. Живи Беларусь! Слава Украине! Long live Europe!
I'm Ukrainian and Crimean Tatar activist. I spent nearly 2 years in Russian prison. In December 22, I was abducted by Russian security forces right at the border. I was trying to reach Crimea to visit my critically ill father. My only crime was that I'm Crimean Tatar. I'm Ukrainian, born in Crimea, and I refuse to take Russian passport. This is more than a war for territory. This is the battle between light and darkness, between freedom and slavery, between democracy and tyranny. And Ukraine is still fighting. And we fighting for the win. But just imagine, what if Ukrainian fall? Who will be next? Thank you.
I'd like to start, please, with a moment of silence in memory of all Ukrainian women and men that were killed by Russia during this war, please. Thank you. It's called Silent Project. And it's targeted directly to support raped families. And my oldest case in this project was 75-year-old woman that was raped by Russian soldiers. And my youngest case was 4. She was 4-year-old girl. She was raped by Russian soldiers, not one. When they came to her village, and she did not understand what happened to her and why, as she said, those people were so bad to her. I'm telling you all these stories because I want you to try to imagine, just for a moment, this hell, personal hell of every Ukrainian citizen. Anyway, I'm so proud to be Ukrainian. I'm so proud that I was born and that I live in Ukraine. Ukraine is a country of courage. Слава Україні! Слава українським героям і слава українським героїням. Thank you.
Dakin kollox li kelli għalikom illum tkellimna ħafna fuq il-Jum Internazzjonali tan-nisa però mhux biss sirna nafu aktar dwar kif taħsibha l-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola fuq dak li huwa għaddej bħalissa fid-dinja madwarna, speċjalment fejn jidħlu l-Istati Uniti, l-Ukrajna u Russja, kif issa tkun qed tilqa' l-Unjoni Ewropea għal aktar sigurtà mhux biex tibgħat is-soldati on the ground però biex tissalvagwardja l-pajjiżi Ewropej u anka smajna wkoll il-pariri politiċi lill-partiti politiċi tagħna u anka xi tips li tagħmel speċjalment dik li tgħix ġurnata b'ġurnata biex jirnexxiela tkampa ma' dawn l-avvenimenti kollha li nissugraw ngħidu ma tantx huma sbieħ, però meta jkollok kariga ta' din il-kwalità ikollok tidħol għalihom bir-ras. Jiena nirringrazzjakom ħafna tal-li kontu miegħi għal programm ieħor Dinja Ewropa, nirringrazzjakom ħafna li kontu magħna f'din is-sensiela kollha ta' Dinja Ewropa, dan kien kif għattilkom l-aħħar programm, però inwedkom li se nkunu qegħdin inwaslulkom b'xi mod jew ieħor l-aħbarijiet mill-Parlament Ewropew biex intom dejjem tifhmu dak li jkun għaddej u dak li jkun deċiż u li se jaffettwa ħajjitna. Jiena lista nirringrazzjakom. Grazzi ħafna, ħudu ħsieb u jalla ikonna sena aħjar minn din li għaddejjin bħalissa.